Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 Week 26 preview. So, it's getting to crunch time. This is the last week of fixtures before the Countdown Cup. The Countdown Cup is our last tournament of this season. There will be 2 weeks after the Countdown Cup, and then the season, as the regular season, has finished, and we will be looking ahead towards the playoffs. It's going to get super interesting over the next few weeks. And, whew, it's, I can't help myself. There's some interesting games. Anyway, the hero pools have been removed. So Orisa, Widowmaker, May and Anna are back. I mean, you know, that's whatever, isn't it? Orisa's back, smile. Anyway, but there are going to be 12 fixtures this week, 11 regular fixtures, and then there's going to be the qualification match for the Countdown Cup between the 12th and 13th placed North American teams. But let's go ahead and get into these fixtures then. And we will be starting off once again on a Friday, as we do always now. Friday, July the 31st at 8 PM with the Dallas Fuel taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. So, Dallas Fuel, I was disappointed they dropped a map to the Boston Uprising last week. Philadelphia Fusion, they had it tough against Los Angeles Gladiators, didn't they? But they got a fairly good sweep against the Toronto Defiant. And I would not expect much to change here. The Philadelphia Fusion are a much better team than the Dallas Fuel in my opinion. And I don't think the Dallas Fuel will be able to stick with them. The honeymoon period of Decay and Doha is kind of worn off, isn't it? They haven't been as pog, as standout as they were. And I think this Dallas Fuel team is really settling into that mid-table sort of space, if you see what I mean. Philadelphia Fusion are one of the better, that's a bit harsh. One of the best teams in this league. They're going to be a top 6 team, I would imagine. And I don't expect this to change. Maybe the Fuel can take them out, but a 3-1 for the Philadelphia Fusion seems pretty likely. At 10 PM, we see the Los Angeles Valiant taking on the Houston Outlaws. Houston Outlaws last week lost to the Washington Justice. Not a great look. Los Angeles Valiant didn't play last week, and they have 2 matches to prepare for this week. So this is going to be interesting. This is definitely their easier match. I would expect the Los Angeles Valiant to win this match. They don't have any roster issues. Lashro is back, KSP, KSF, and Apply. I don't think Apply is going to play, but KSP, KSF, they're all there now. Dreamer as well. So I'd expect them to get past the Houston Outlaws. I think there will be a big golfing class in the main tank role, as there very often is against any team going up against the Houston Outlaws. And I think that should see them out the victory, because I think they can hang with the Houston Outlaws in every other respect. But moving on to the Saturday on August the 1st, yes, we are in August now, believe it or not. We are getting out of 2020. Slowly but surely, we're getting out of 2020. But we're moving over to the APAC region, and at 9 AM we will see the Seoul Dynasty taking on the Hangzhou Charge. So, 2 teams that failed to win last week. Hangzhou Charge falling to the Chengdu Hunters and to the Shanghai Dragons. Seoul Dynasty, I should say, falling to the Shanghai Dragons and Chengdu Hunters. Hangzhou Charge falling to the New York Excelsior in pretty big fashion. So 2 teams that want to bounce back. Seoul Dynasty, I still have my questions over your regular season form. It doesn't seem like you win games, does it, at all in the regular season? Unless it's against Chengdu. But then again, Chengdu are looking good right now, so then you didn't win that one either. This is your last match. Your last match of this regular part ahead of the summer show, not the summer showdown, ahead of the Countdown Cup. And to be quite honest, I don't see you beating the Hangzhou Charge. The Hangzhou Charge are fairly good. They'll be able to go back to the comps that they prefer, which means I don't see the Seoul Dynasty winning this. And if Seoul Dynasty don't win this, they finish bottom of the standings for Asia in July, with no wins on the board. And that would be a pretty harsh look. And not great for this squad that wants to be one of the best in the league. Let's not beat around the bush here. They were on about being one of the best in the league, and it doesn't look like it right now. But if I was to bet anything, I think it might be a 3-2 for Hangzhou. I think this might be close. I don't think Seoul Dynasty want to finish off July with no wins. That's for sure. But at 11 AM, we will see the London Spitfire take on the Hangzhou Spark. London Spitfire. It was a good week despite the 3-2 loss against the Shanghai Dragons last week. Hangzhou Spark, however, looked absolutely dreadful against the Chengdu Hunters. And last time this fixture took place, it was a 3-0 for the London Spitfire. No one really expected it because it was a Hangzhou Spark team that had been on fairly good form just before the Summer Showdown. And it kind of caught people off guard. London Spitfire, they only have to prepare for this match this week. I don't know why when they've got to play 3 times after the Countdown Cup. It is pretty bizarre in 1 week. But, you know, our scheduling or whatever. But I think, I'm worried about the blast back from Hangzhou Spark. That's what I'm worried about. Hangzhou are on a 1-1 record. London are on a 0-2 record. So they're another team that could finish this month with no wins on the board. And I wasn't going to be surprised if they did, actually, with their really tough schedule. So, I don't know. 3-1 for the Spitfire. 3-1 for the Spitfire, I think. Just because they can prepare so much just for this Hangzhou Spark squad this week, I think that will see them through. We saw the preparation they made for the Shanghai Dragons last week, and it really paid off. Even though it didn't result in a win, but it almost did. So, yeah, I would go for a Spitfire win. And then at 1 PM we see New York Excelsior taking on the Shanghai Dragons. So, New York looked super good last week when they could play Bianca alongside Mano. Everything seemed to fall into place. They got a sweep of the Guangzhou Charge and everything was really hunky-dory. Shanghai Dragons are a little bit tougher, wasn't it? They got given a good old scare by the Spitfire. And the last time we saw this, the New York Excelsior looked really darn good. They were on top, they were 2-0 up at half time, but as the Excelsior are known for, they choked and ended up losing 3-2 to the Dragons. So they yet to beat the Dragons this season. And I think if there's a perfect storm for the Excelsior to beat the Dragons, I think this is the opportunity for it. And Chengdu Hunters fans will be looking on in great interest, because if the New York Excelsior can prevent the Shanghai Dragons from winning this match, then Chengdu Hunters will be the top seed in Asia for July, which is something I don't think any of us would have predicted a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, remember that Chengdu Hunters squad actually beat this Excelsior squad 3-2 in week 24. But I'm not sure how this is going to go. Based on the fact that the Shanghai Dragons have one match this week, there is no second set of APAC matches this week. I don't know why, but there isn't. So I think Shanghai might see out a victory here. I think it's going to be super duper close though, and I don't think it's going to be close like it was in the previous match between these two, where it was a really weird reverse sweep. I think it will be more like a really close barnstormer sort of match. I really hope it is. I have just got this sneaky feeling that Excelsior are going to win. I've got a sneaky feeling the Excelsior are going to win, and if Excelsior can get a good enough win, they can usurp the Shanghai Dragons into a second spot and get the first pick of whoever they want to play in the Countdown Cup. I'm going to go for a 3-2 for the Excelsior. And if that's what happens, then that will see the Shanghai Dragons take the second spot and not the Excelsior. I think this all could be super close, but I would say 3-2 for the Excelsior because I've just got this really weird feeling that Excelsior are going to win. But moving to later on in the Saturday, or on the Saturday at 8 PM, we move back to the North American region with Paris Eternal taking on the Washington Justice. Washington Justice, great win against Houston Outlaws last week. Paris Eternal nigh on unstoppable at the moment, and I don't expect that to change even though the meta might shift ever so slightly. Paris Eternal should be able to get a fairly hefty victory against the Washington Justice, and I wouldn't expect anything but a 3-0 from this really dominant Eternal side right now. At 10 PM, we will see the Toronto Defiant taking on Vancouver Titans. This is a bottom of the league clash. Vancouver Titans, it's been torrid recently, hasn't it? You got absolutely embarrassed by the San Francisco Shock last week. And yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about it. Toronto Defiant, they lost heavily to the Philadelphia Fusion, but I believe they did get a win on the board. So it's not doom and gloom for the Toronto Defiant. This is the sort of match I want to see the Toronto Defiant win. They're currently in 14th place, and if they want to get any higher than that, they need to be putting these games to bed, and they need to be putting them to bed pretty well. Vancouver Titans, however, if they want to get out of their predicament that they're in, this is your stepping stone. This is your block that, you know, propels you further up the league. I still think this is a Toronto Defiant win. A 3-1 would not surprise me, and that's what I'll go for. But at midnight, heading into the Sunday, it'll be the Houston Outlaws taking on the San Francisco Shock, and the most interesting thing about this match is the fact that Violet won't be available for the San Francisco Shock after not being able to hold his tongue in competitive. He's been banned for one match and been given a fine. So, no Violet means we will most likely see Moss and Twilight Although, unless they want to sub in the super flex player, you know, that massive flex player they've got, super, in on the Zen. I mean, we've seen the Super Zen before. It wouldn't surprise me. But I still don't think this Violet issue is going to have a massive, massive impact on what happens with the San Francisco Shock. They should be able to get past the... they should be able to get past the Houston Outlaws. The main tank role is going to be there's going to be a massive gap in skill. But not only that, Meko can't carry because he's up against Choi Hyoben, and therefore it's just not going to happen for this Outlaw squad, I wouldn't imagine. A 3-0 for the Shock, I would imagine, is the most likely thing to happen here. But moving on, Dallas Fuel versus the Atlanta Reign on the Sunday at 8 PM, and this is an interesting one. The Atlanta Reign are currently 8th in the league, so they're doing pretty well, and this is not the strength of Atlanta Reign's squad we were expecting at the start of the season, but it's getting back to a good form. And Atlanta Reign are known for hitting form towards the end of the season. I don't know whether you've noticed, they were the only team to beat the San Francisco Shock in last year's playoffs. Well, they did cause kind of Super Saiyan sort of San Francisco Shock to go and 4-0 everyone afterwards. Thank you very much, Atlanta. But, you know, stuff happens. At Dallas Fuel, though, this is a match where I want to see them really bite. And what I mean by that is, this is winnable for the Dallas Fuel. This is a match they could win. So I want them to go and win it. I think it could be quite close, but I would still expect the Atlanta Reign to come out with a victory, so I'm going to go 3-1 for the Atlanta Reign. Moving on though, at 10 PM we're going to see two teams we're only going to see once this weekend. It'll be the Los Angeles Gladiators taking on the Florida Mayhem. Gladiators, they had a fantastic display against the Philadelphia Fusion last week, but got absolutely swept aside by the Paris Eternal. There's nothing wrong with that. I actually think it was a fantastic week for the Gladiators last week. Florida Mayhem, they lost against the San Francisco Shock, but not in a completely embarrassing fashion, and they completely swept aside the Washington Justice, which is what we expect from this Florida Mayhem squad that is 7th in the league right now. So, the question is, can they beat the Gladiators? And it depends what Gladiators turn up, because if the Gladiators that played against the Philadelphia Fusion turn up, I actually worry about the Mayhem in this match. I really do. But if the Gladiators that we've seen from the rest of the season turn up, then the Mayhem should 3-0 this. So it's very difficult to tell what's going to happen in this match, because it's so heavily reliant on the random generator that it is the Los Angeles Gladiators this season. So if I'm going to go for a scoreline here, 3-1 for the Florida Mayhem seems like a pretty safe bet. And Florida Mayhem, they do have a clutch potential, so they probably may win anyway, even if the Gladiators are on form. But the last proper scheduled fixture is at midnight going into the Monday, and that's the Philadelphia Fusion taking on Los Angeles Valiant. So I said that the Valiant had a tougher match than the Houston Outlaws this weekend, and that's the one. Philadelphia Fusion, they are good, but they're never quite that very, very top team, are they? That's what bugs me about the Fusion. They should have enough to see off the Los Angeles Valiant. And if the Fusion really want to name themselves as one of the best teams in this league, or contender for that anyway, with the likes of the Shanghai Dragons and the San Francisco Shock, then they have to be able to put these two games to bed this week against the Fuel and the Valiant. They need to be able to put them to bed pretty handily. And that's just the one thing I have questions over the Fusion right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Fusion do this week. But we do have an extra fixture shoehorned onto the end of this, and this is at 2 AM on the Monday, which will be between to be decided and to be decided. And you know what that means? That means that is the 12th and 13th qualification playoff for the Countdown Cup. Now, who will that contain? Well, we already know that one of them will be the Boston Uprising. The other one is to be decided right now between the Washington Justice, Toronto Defiant maybe, Houston Outlaws, but in my opinion the most likely candidate will be the Vancouver Titans. So if I was to say Vancouver Titans versus Boston, who knows? I mean, Boston turned up last time out to get a win in that qualification match. I would go for Boston again. Come on, Boston. Come on, Boston, just make it to the Blimmin' Countdown Cup. Just make it. You never know, you might win it all. Okay, I'm going too far now. I've been recording for too long. Anyway, I'm going to leave it here for this one. It's going to be a super duper interesting week. Again, this is a little bit earlier. There's been a lot of videos today because, well, yeah, there's Friday fixtures these days, which is kind of throwing me off. But there will be obviously a team of the week and results and all that next week. And then we all look ahead at the Countdown Cup, which is going to be super duper interesting. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.